This is a standard ColecoVision game cartridge. You've probably all seen game cartridges before. They were prevalent in video games from the late 70s all the way up until the late 90s. But you may not know where the cartridge got its start in computing. Today we're going to find that out when we learn the history of the video brain right here on Vintage Geek. Just a reminder, if you like vintage computers and vintage tech, be sure to like and subscribe. It's going to help us a lot as we grow, and I would encourage you to become a member at our website, vintagegeek.com. We've got lots of extras for you there as well. Going back to the late 70s, there was kind of a battle going on in the processor space. Who could come out with a microprocessor that would ultimately power the home computing revolution? There were two very bright individuals that were in charge of two different companies, starting with Dr. David Chung, who was the head of development for Fairchild Semiconductor. He had just come out with a new processor called the Fairchild F8. He also worked with a colleague named Dr. Albert Yu. Dr. Albert Yu was actually at Fairchild, but then got recruited by Intel to become the head of their microprocessor division and ended up doing a lot with that company over the years. They came up with a company called Umtech back in 1977. And with the combined intelligence of these two individuals, they came up with one of the very first home computers called the VideoBrain. It was also one of the first computers to be sold in a department store. Macy's was the first retailer to carry this device, which was very novel at the time. So I want to take a look at the VideoBrain today. I want to see everything that goes into the system, how it was designed, and see if we can make it do something. Looking at this, of course, it's a black plastic chassis. It is a rather large device, especially when you look at how tall this thing is in the back. The keyboard on it is very unique. The keys do have full motion, but the layout of this keyboard is really something that I've never quite seen before. For example, the numeric keys 1 through 9 are actually residing on some of the first letter keys to the left-hand side of the keyboard. There are also some interesting symbols on the keyboard that you don't normally see as part of a standard character set. I noticed right away that there's a cent sign above the P key. There's also a pi symbol above the semicolon. And there are some custom keys at the bottom of the keyboard as well. Text back, color, and previous. I don't know if these are dual functions. I assume they must be. You've got a clock and a next button, alarm, special, restart, and erase. These are non-standard keys. And of course, then you've got the run, stop, and space bar. And space bar is used very loosely because it's a very small space key, although it is bigger than the other keys, so I'll give it credit for that. And then you've got my favorite button on the keyboard, the master control button, which is a red key. And you know I love a good red key on a keyboard. Reminds me of the panic button that you could buy back in the day. It was kind of a funny joke. Really interesting design on this keyboard. You've got some dead space to the left and right. You've got quite a bit of ventilation in the back of the unit. I assume this thing does produce some heat. The power supply itself is just an AC supply that plugs into the wall. The center part in the back is where the cartridges would go, and this is where things really get interesting. We have one of the first examples of a cartridge system in home computing. If we look inside the unit, we can see that there's a row of metal pins, as you would normally find in a cartridge slot, but this isn't set up like we've seen with other systems where you kind of put a cartridge in and there would be a connector that would go around an edge card in the cartridge. In these, basically, there's a row of copper conductors on the underside of the cartridge, and when you put that in the slot, it's going to mate up and then basically just touch the matching counterparts inside the unit. So it's not being held captive necessarily, it's just making physical contact. There's not a lot of data of these machines going far into the future, so I don't know how well that held up. If the Nintendo was any indication with its system of moving the cartridge up and down, it probably didn't bode well for that design in the long term. But I'm sure for the time it was effective. It also made an easy way to exchange programs in your system. You simply take out the cartridge and put in another one, and you're good to go. This particular device was really limited in the amount of memory it had. I believe it had 1K of total RAM, a 4K ROM chip on it. The machine did support 16 colors. It definitely did not use BASIC like the other systems, which made the learning curve a little bit more challenging if you wanted to get in and start writing your own programs. We're very lucky to have gotten a complete system. It's very difficult to find. We also have the expansion unit. This was strictly for the capability of being able to read and write to cassette. We also got with our VideoBrain system an assortment of cartridges that came with it originally. It's got a little bit of everything, and I'm really curious to see what any of this would actually look like. We've got our VideoBrain computer set up and ready to test, and I did want to mention that we got this cool letter, and it says, "Dear VideoBrain owner, thank you for your recent purchase of a VideoBrain system. We sincerely hope you get many years of enjoyment from your computer. Although every effort was made to process your order exactly as received, due to high demands, some programs may have been unavailable. Or as the letter says, unavailable. Please do not hesitate to call should you have any questions or comments. Very truly, Ed Alamany." Now there is a power switch at the front of the unit. Let's give it a try. And we've got a power indicator. We've got nothing on the screen so far. Oh, ha! We've got an image. VideoBrain TM. Choose key, text, color, clock, alarm, or enter cartridge. All right, this thing actually works. We're gonna have some fun today. It looks clear, it's very readable, so that's good. According to the manual, there were 4 programs that came with the system that did not require a cartridge to be inserted. You've got a text editor mode, you've got a color selector, a clock, and an alarm function. Those can all be accessed without actually inserting a cartridge at all. So I want to just run through some of that really quickly and just kind of follow what the manual says. The other thing that's showing on the display right now is at the bottom right-hand side, there is a kind of a character there. It's just a box. Apparently this is representing what's happening with the shift key. If you hit the shift key so you can use the upper character set on the keyboard, that should change. And it does. It changes to a darker color. I could see that being handy because you don't really know otherwise if you're using the shift mode or not. Let's take a look now and see what it says about the built-in programs. So the text program, it says, will allow you to write on the screen and store in memory a message, a poem, a quote, or a list up to 7 lines long with 16 characters in each line. It's a pretty long list right there, but let's see how this works. We just hit the text key in the bottom row to access this function. Aha, so now we're in a text editing screen. It says you can type like you would on a typewriter, so. Ooh, that space key is sticky. Well, it will automatically go to the next line, so that's cool. There you go, basic text editing. These special keys at the bottom of the keyboard are for manipulating the text. If I hit the back button, for example, it will move the cursor back without erasing it. And then there's a separate erase key, so if I hit that, I'll get rid of the character. Okay, so there's not really a backspace unless I do this. What's the previous do? Okay, so that goes to the beginning of the line. Next is probably the next line. Okay, you pretty much just have to go back, manipulate the text, erase it after the fact. There is no actual backspace on the keyboard. Because I'm curious, what do some of these special function keys look like in text? How about the pi symbol? All right, well, it does put a pi symbol on the screen. That's cool. And the cent sign, very blocky looking, but also cool. And I assume you would type the numbers using the shifted functions as well. Yep. Honestly though, everything seems to be working as expected. It says in the book that the red master control button will always return you back to the main menu. So it can be used when you're using a cartridge, when you're using any of the programs that are built in. You just hit the button and it should take you back. And it does. So what happens if we hit the color button? Oh, well, there's all the colors. There's 16 there. Looks good. I mean, it's a bit grainy, but honestly not terrible for an RF modulator from this age. This color display is basically to calibrate your television. That's a pretty handy feature to have, especially at the time. I'm gonna go ahead and hit the master control button again. And this time I'm gonna go into clock, set clock, year, month, date, day, hour, minutes, and seconds. And it does accept a 4-digit year, so I'm really curious if this is going to handle something post 2000. We'll do shift so we get the number mode to accepted 2000 as the year, so we'll just say it's April or something. 2-digit numbers for the day, 1 through 7. We'll say it's Monday, hour, I don't know, we'll just say it's 12 o'clock. Oh, and then you push G to start the clock, okay. All right, we got a working clock. I love the fact that the 0 is so much narrower than the other digits. It looks a little bit silly, but I like it. And actually super impressed that it would allow a 4-digit date. There's also some way to set an alarm in here. If you set an alarm, it'll actually interject a tone into your television and interrupt whatever program you're using. So let me hit the master control button again, and let's go to alarm. And now we have to set the whole value for this as well. Let's see. Okay, I've set my alarm for 12:09. We go back to the main clock screen. We got a few seconds to wait here to see what happens with our alarm. 10 seconds. Oh, so I guess it just goes back to your text editing screen when the alarm is supposed to hit. That's interesting. If you have stored a message in the computer memory and have not used a cartridge, the alarm will display the message when it goes off. As soon as you have read the message, you can push any key to shut off the alarm and display the correct clock time. So it's pretty neat that this thing had an alarm clock in it. Obviously, it's a kind of novel feature for the time, 1977. Most computers we've looked at from this time didn't have any of that kind of functionality out of the box. So the fact that this one has this without using an additional cartridge or any other programs is pretty cool. So I guess next I'd like to see what the system can do with an actual cartridge. Since this is the first computer to use a cartridge, I think I'm going to try it out first with a game. We have one game that came with the system. It's called Gladiator. Let's give it power and see what we can do. Ooh, VideoBrain TM, Gladiator. Select a game by typing a number between 0 and 384. Well, I don't know if there's actually 384 games on here, but let's try putting in game 5. And then I guess we just hit the run stop key. Oh, wow. This is pretty cool. So far I've learned how to move around. Now, is this a 2-player game? Oh, it is. Great. Oh, there's a lion. Oh no. Now, I assume if I hit the joystick button... Oh, cool. Oh, wow. I can't believe my aim was that good. Come here, lion. Oops. It did give me a score at the top for hitting my opponent, who unfortunately cannot move on his own accord. Come back. Oh no. I guess the lion got me. He was a sitting duck for that one. All right, so it keeps score at the top. This looks great though. For 1977, an early game title for the system using 1K of RAM. I mean, at least the characters look like people. A lot of the games from this time was just dots moving around a screen. Gladiator takes you all the way from a Colosseum in ancient Rome to an intergalactic battlefield far in the future. And in between, there's plenty of action on a modern-day football field. These 3 sets of gladiators, ancient, modern, and future, are yours to control once you master the operating procedures, the joystick, and the hit button. VideoBrain has been programmed to provide an incredible assortment of selectable game features. You can opt for increased speed, more threatening obstacles, for 2 types of object trajectory, and for a computerized opponent. I guess that's how they got the total of 384 different ways to play the game. There's another challenge, which is the hungry lion, which occasionally charges down the screen. You'll want to avoid being his lunch. You can't kill him, but you might succeed in scaring him off in your opponent's direction. So you can't kill the lion, that makes sense. So what are the other versions of the game? Really interesting that they had so many different options for this. I definitely want to see what the intergalactic battlefield version of this looks like. So let's hit the master control button. And if we want to do the basic game of Future Gladiator, we use 256. Oh, wow. Some little flying saucers flying around and a lot of grainy movement on screen. I like how the saucers look though. Looks like we got an enemy here. Just like the lion situation. I scared him away. So he is like the lion. You can't defeat him. Let's see if I can get the other character to be able to fire at the ship. Haha. This game is very basic, but these look pretty good. You can tell that they're actually flying saucers. I like what they've done with the effects of these barriers and kind of how they're in motion just by using kind of this weird static effect. I also want to note that I did try the scrimmage mode of this game, which also has its own unique appearance. It has a lot of interesting motions, including the player hand movement as you move the joystick around. Again, just another example of some of the cool graphics that they were working into a system from 1977. It's pretty cool. This system was pretty far ahead of its time, and it's kind of unfortunate that it met with the fate that it did. They had too many things out there that people weren't ready for yet. If this would have been a couple of years later, I think it could have been a different story for VideoBrain. But I'm really impressed with what I'm seeing so far. I love the cartridge aspect of it, the built-in programs, it's all looking good. Really interesting design for a very early computer, and really glad to have one here in the museum. I definitely want to take some time and go through all of the cartridges in this system, and if there's something specific that you'd like to see, please let us know in the comments below. And also, if you had one of these VideoBrain devices, I'd love to hear from you. This is not a common machine, so hearing anyone's experiences is always a lot of fun, and we appreciate it a lot here on the channel. Thanks for watching as always. Just a quick reminder, if you do like vintage tech and vintage computers, be sure to like and subscribe. It helps us a lot as we grow, and I would encourage you to become a Vintage Geek member. You can do that at the website. We've got extra content and even discounts on museum admission. It's all at vintagegeek.com. Until next time, I'm Aaron, and this has been Vintage Geek.
One more time
okay.
for the wider shot.
Sounds good.
What do you foresee for dinner?
Honestly, I'm looking forward to some kind of pasta dish.
That's always good.
Maybe a little breaded chicken, you know, you just get a little crazy there.
Get the carbonara out, why not?
Exactly.
Say that again, or as the letter says.
Or as the letter says, unvaluable.
Don't look at me.
Oh yeah. Thanks for watching as always. Again, Thanks for watching as always. I would encourage you to like and subscribe as we... that didn't work, sorry. As always, thanks for watching. Quick reminder, if you would be...